Hopefully, we have sound now because that was an absolute mess up of a first attempt. So, if you could just give us a few thumbs up if you could hear me all right, that would be very, very much appreciated. Back to what I was saying before. Yeah, we thought we'd do some YouTube lives because we want to chat to you guys. We want to see what you've got to say, and we appreciate all the support you've given to us over the time. So. Yeah, what's happened over the last week at Sheffield Wednesday has been remarkable. I think as a fan myself, I've been blown away by it. I think we all know what we're like as Wednesday fans. We know what the power of this fan base can be, and I think that the last week has only gone to show that. I think to go from thousands of people staying away from the stadium because of Dejphon Chansiri and their own personal process against him. To get into where we are now, I mean, the short notice that people managed to take up seats at the game the other day for Oxford, and everything that's happened since, the money that's been raised by fans is out of this world. I think Wednesday have shown what a family we are, and you look at everybody involved, whether it's the people in the club shop, the fans, the players, the way that the players have been speaking about the whole situation. It's just, it's so genuinely heartwarming and wholesome. The first question we do have there, or Wednesday, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, well, you'd hope so. I mean, I did see there's a guy on there talking about a blade, but I think he's joking. But I think what we can do here is we can categorically say that Sheffield Wednesday are on the brink of a new dawn. It became untenable, didn't it? Wednesday were in a position where it just was not feasible to go on the way that it was. Obviously, Dejphon Chansiri clung on for as long as he could. No one was particularly happy about that, even to the point where he tried to get in touch with the mayor, as per my conversation with Clive Betts, to see if the mayor could help him out. That's not really the sort of thing the mayor does, and yeah, I think that felt like a bit of a last gasp attempt. We've got a question there from Grumpy Neil. Was there talk of some of the transfer embargoes potentially being removed when the new owners came in? This is something I can talk about because I'm not sure there are many people on this planet that know more about transfer embargoes and transfer fee restrictions and all that stuff than I do at the moment, having spent weeks and weeks of my life poring over the EFL rules and regulations. I think it's probably worth saying Sheffield Wednesday's embargoes will disappear as soon as everything's paid. Embargoes and transfer fee restrictions are two very different things. The embargoes are there in place. Look, you go into administration, you get your minus 12. You also get your embargo until you're out of administration. So that's just another to add to Wednesday's very long list of embargoes that have been in place and out of place for quite a while now. But yeah, I think what Neil was asking about was the actual restrictions. So the restrictions, that is on the back of Sheffield Wednesday breaching the EFL's 30-day rule. They did that once, they did it again, which is why the actual restrictions got extended and pushed further back. So we're into 2027 now. That can be appealed by the new owners. Whether there's any success in that appeal is the big question. That sort of we were guided towards the idea from people who would know these things that effectively people shouldn't get their hopes up. There is a chance, and Wednesday are in a position where obviously there are very specific circumstances around what's happened. But I think one of the issues that we have is that the EFL have to impose their rules. These rules are voted on and put in place by every member club, so they can't be seen to be sort of giving people a free pass. It might be a case of the fee restriction is lessened. It won't be gone. I think that getting rid of it is. I mean, look, they've already had the last transfer window, which was a problem. We've still got a few more of those to come. What I would say is that I think Sheffield Wednesday have shown what the club can be with those restrictions in place. I mean, it wasn't exactly like that when Darren Moore was in League One with Sheffield Wednesday. They weren't under as strict problems, but he did manage to do things on a real budget. You know, some of the players that Darren brought in, you know, someone like Lee Gregory, George Byers, these were players that were signed as free agents that bought into the project. And you know, we've already seen what Henrik can do in terms of the pool that he's got with Harry Mas coming in. We know there were others that would have been through the door if it hadn't been for the situation, shall we call it, with Chansiri not being able to prove that he could pay any new players. But yeah, the long and short of it, Neil, is yes, there's a chance. I wouldn't like to say that it's likely, but I think there is a possibility that, you know, the on appeal, given the circumstances, Sheffield Wednesday might have a little bit of a chance. Slightly off topic here. Favorite Sopranos character. Anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that I'm currently in Sopranos mode. So much so that I went searching for Italian food last night. I'll keep it short. I don't know who my favorite character is. It possibly could be Chris, maybe, but also his mum is the worst. So that's that. We can move on from that quickly. Another question, just following on from the fee restrictions from Neil. Are there any circumstances where the EFL have lessened restrictions? There have, but not in this grander scale. So we saw basically that what the argument can be that the punishment is it doesn't represent the size of the problem, and unfortunately in Wednesday's case, the problem is very clear and very obvious and went on for a very long time. So yeah, that is going to be the sticking point. We just got to hope that from a Wednesday perspective, they can use the sort of mitigating circumstances to try and ask the question and see if they can get something done. So comment from Glenn there saying, if it means getting relegated to get rid of him, then come back stronger. I think, yeah, for me, and this might be a question that comes up a little bit further down the line, we need what Wednesday need now is they need all of the points to be docked this season. There are more points deductions to come, probably, given the other issues that Sheffield Wednesday had. At this point, obviously, it's already an uphill task. It was before the administration points deduction came in. Wednesday need to be in a position where they are able to draw a line under the season. If relegation is what it takes, which is, let's be honest, I think probably quite likely given the struggles that they've got, given all the other issues going on at Sheffield Wednesday. I think relegation is, I think most of us have kind of made peace with that happening, and that is the price to pay to have this reset that we needed. And I agree with Glenn. We've seen enough clubs go down. We've seen enough clubs struggle. I mean, look at Coventry and where they are at the moment. They were on the brink not that long back, and now they're on the different kind of a brink, the one back into the Premier League. We've just got to hope that Wednesday can move on from this situation as soon as possible. Obviously, we need to find a buyer. We've got to make sure that buyer is the right one, because I think we're all pretty sick and tired of people running our football club that seemingly don't know how to do so. Question there from Brad says, is it right that any owner that comes in can essentially spend endless money on ground, training ground, etc.? To some extent, yeah. Basically that side of things is not governed by the financial regulations of the EFL. So yeah, if you want to put money into the ground, if you want to put money into the change room, into the training ground as well, you can do that, and no one's gonna stop you stop you doing any of that, because that is, I suppose, seen as a benefit to the club and not necessarily the playing staff, and you're not splurging money in that sense. Do you have any names or info on who's sniffing around? Look, what I will say is, even if I did, I wouldn't be saying it at this point. I think some of you may have noted in Sheffield Wednesday's statement the other day, and this is not a sort of pat on the back for myself or any of the other media. You know, Alex and Rob and everyone else, Gids, have worked really hard on this. And I don't think any of this is a pat on the back for ourselves. But one of the things that they mentioned was how important it was that sort of restraint had been shown at different times. And I do think that from a Wednesday perspective, we've got to be careful now. You know, we would never want to be the reason that something fell through. So in answer to your question, even if I did have names, I wouldn't be putting them out at this point in time, because I don't think it's helpful. There's going to be a lot of speculation. There's going to be a lot said about Sheffield Wednesday, and there are lots of people currently interested. Alex did a great story yesterday saying that a couple have already shown proof of funds, as was mentioned by someone else, of 50 million. That doesn't mean that they're looking to pay 50 million for Sheffield Wednesday. That's, that they just have shown that they have 50 million to spend if they need to, and I think that is obviously more than what we Wednesday were dealing with before. So yeah, we've got to wait and see now. It's going to be I suppose not a long process, but it's going to be a process that's got to be done properly. I think if you've listened to any of the administrators talk, they speak really well. I think Chris Wigfield has been the main front man, and as a Wednesdayite himself, I think he's done really, really well in terms of what he said. And yeah, Wednesday just need to keep it ticking over now. So yeah, names we will have to wait and see. I know there is a lot of interest from here, from the States, people with far bigger bank accounts than yours and mine. So yeah, we've just got to wait and see now. Fingers crossed that we get the right outcome as soon as possible. We've got a question here saying, how possible for you is it that we get a 15-point deduction next season? Also for the transfer embargo to be lifted. I think with the embargo bit that you mentioned, we've already sort of discussed that. The fee restriction could be lifted. The embargoes will be lifted immediately when everybody's paid, when everyone's had their money. So yeah, that bit is not an issue, but the fee restriction, we've got to wait on appeal. There's obviously lots to sort out in that. Back to your first question, the points deduction next season, we got to hope that that's not the case. I don't think the EFL want this to drag on. Sheffield Wednesday certainly don't want it to drag on, and the new owners, whoever that might be, certainly won't want this to creep into next season. The complication is that basically the breaches before that were, obviously you've got the points deduction that came with administration, the breaches before that, a date has been set for that. That is now, the EFL haven't made it public, but we do know that a date's been set. So there's a potential point deduction coming for that. And then there's obviously the breaches that have happened since as well. So that is a potential point deduction there. My guess and my hope would be that the EFL and the commission, and of course they're heard by different people because of a change in the rules over the summer. So the hope is, I think, for everybody that this can be wrapped up and put to bed as soon as physically possible, because this is a chapter that needs to close for everybody. And I'm pretty sure the EFL will be absolutely sick to death of seeing Sheffield Wednesday and Day Punch series names. So the quicker we can get rid of that, the better. The question there from Chris saying, as a fan instead of a journalist, who would you like to see get involved in terms of taking over Wednesday? Do you know what? And this is not me sitting on the fence and not giving a real answer. I just genuinely just want my football club to be run properly. I want someone, if it's someone with an absolute load of money, buckets full, can go and spearhead a push to the Premier League immediately, then brilliant. If it's someone that wants to come in and settle things down and improve the stadium and improve the training ground and push money into parts of the club that have needed it for a long time, and that's not just from a football perspective either. There are departments within Sheffield Wednesday Football Club that are chronically understaffed. They need help. They've needed help for a long time, and if the new owner is able to come in and do that and push money into the right places and get Hillsborough back up to speed with where it needs to be, because let's face it, there are things lacking in that stadium. That's what I want. I obviously want to see my football team do well, and I'm 35 now. I'd like to see them back in the Premier League before I reach retirement age. But yeah, I also quite like seeing my football team winning football games at any level, really. So yeah, as a fan, and I suppose as a journalist as well, because a well-run football club is nice to work with as a journalist. So yeah, on both sides of that coin, I just want to see an organized group of people come in that will actually care about the football club, the place, the people, the community. And as long as they tick all those boxes, I do not care where they come from or what else they end up getting up to. Yeah, a good point there about NDAs from Louis. Yeah, they will be in place, so that will be adhered to as well. We've got a question here from Sean saying, could the EFL change a points deduction to be charged to Chancery as a financial bill? Well, if only that was the case. No, look, they've got to adhere to the rules. As we've said, there is a situation in place where they can't be seen to be looking after certain clubs, and the rules are there to be utilised. They are signed off, and as we mentioned earlier, they can do nothing else but stick to those. I think there's been a lot of flack come the EFL's way, but they've ultimately been flexing the only muscles that they have, and they have played their part in all of this. I think restricting Chancery when they did, putting the foot down when they did, has all been part of Sheffield Wednesday's fight for freedom, and now we are here, and we're not too far away now. Another question from Chris saying, does having gone into administration affect deals with administrators? Could a takeover see a new kit manufacturer, for example? I think I'd have to look into that, but I'm pretty sure that you'd have to try and cancel the contract, because the contract, like a kit contract, for instance, is with the club itself. They might look to do that. They might not. I think there's been, maybe it's an unpopular thing. I think some of the Macron gear has been frowned upon, some not so much. Me personally, I think the Tango kit a couple of years back is one of the best kits we've had in years. The promotion kits were both great. So yeah, look, I think probably more the owl and the badge is something that people might be looking to change going forward, rather than a kit manufacturer. But yeah, that's actually an interesting question. I'll have a look into that and maybe get back to you if I can. Another question here. I understand you don't know and can't tell us about any prospective new owners, but can you tell us the caliber and just how big the potential buyers are? Should we be excited? We should be excited, because Wednesday are going to be better run. Hopefully, we are in a position now where a new owner can come in with a real reset, a real clean slate, which is something Sheffield Wednesday haven't had for a long time and have really needed. We got close to it a couple of times, but not had that real clean sweep of getting rid of everything. And I think you look at this group of players now, and they are really fighting for the cause. Everyone that's left clearly wants to be here because they had the option to not be. Quite literally could have just walked away if they wanted to, as we saw with some of the players. So I think that with this group of players, if Wednesday do go down, we have got that clean sweep. And I think with regards to the caliber of the people looking at Wednesday, yeah, there is reason to be excited. Obviously, we don't know where it's going to go to. There are a lot of people talking to the administrators, and they've all got different parties sort of involved in their consortiums or whatever it might be. But yeah, in short, I think we should be excited. I think we are we're on the rise, and that's all any of us have wanted for quite some time. Can you give us a Chancery horror story as a journalist? Yeah, probably not now. I'd have to have a think about that, because I need to check out what I can and can't say. But there's been some interesting ones over the years. I mean, look, some of the more interesting ones have been out in public recently. I think the thing with the gold was a bit nuts. But I think the problem we've had with Wednesday in general is that, like, the maddest things come out, and because of how things were run, you could never 100% rule it out. If you'd said at most other clubs that there's talk of effectively a pirate pot of gold that's trying to be sold in order to fund the club going forward, you go, absolutely not. That cannot be true. But Sheffield Wednesday, you can't rule that out, and turns out it was true. So that's where we were at with Wednesday. And I think it's one of the reasons why the speculation was so grand over the summer, especially because we're getting sent all these things that we've got to look up to. And we're trying to go through them all, but like some of them are ridiculous and were ridiculous, but you could never 100% rule them out. So yeah, it's been a wacky period for Sheffield Wednesday, and one day I'm sure me and Alex will get our heads together and we'll be putting together a book, but no promises on that. I just feel like there might be a little bit of a demand in that sense. Do you think it would be better building a new stadium or updating Hillsborough? My opinion, I would hate to leave, but I think that is more nostalgia and emotional than anything else. I think Wednesday can, with the right funding, with the right people in charge. I know there've been in the past people putting together plans for a renewed Hillsborough, one that's revitalised and doesn't look as broken down. That would be my preference. Hillsborough is somewhere I've been going since I was 3 years old. So yeah, I know that there are definitely benefits to new stadiums and things like that. But for me personally, I'd prefer to get Hillsborough where it needs to be rather than move everybody else. If the administrators find out more on funding of the club under the DC, do you think they'll disclose it to the fans? That is a tough one. We don't know where the administrators are at, but they have been very upfront with everything. I think the fact that they made it very clear that everyone had been paid a day early, Mark we had as well. So that was great. So they have been very upfront, but I think obviously there's all sorts of legal stuff involved and things like this. So yeah, well, I think there's going to be a lot to play out at Sheffield Wednesday over the next few weeks, and I think obviously there's a data room been set up for any prospective buyers, and yeah, that people will be going over all that stuff with a very fine tooth comb. Sean asking, is it true that a Wednesday art is officially agreed? I couldn't say that even if I wanted to. Wednesday are, like I say, they're the subject of interest from a lot of people, and I would be stunned if there weren't some Sheffield Wednesday fans in amongst all that. I would like to see someone with local ties involved. I think maybe not as the be all and end all of a bid, but I would like to see someone with a bit of Sheffield knowledge, Sheffield Wednesday knowledge, that kind of thing in the mix, because I think it's good to have that there. I think one of the things we've been crying out for at Sheffield Wednesday for so long is someone who would listen to local people and Sheffield Wednesday fans about what the club needed. And I think you only have to look at what's happened in the days since administration was announced to see the amount of ideas that are in this football club from the people involved, the way that they've been able to implement it all as well. I think everyone's a real credit to the football club, and we've seen some brilliant stuff happen. So in that sense, yeah, I'd love to see someone of a Wednesday persuasion, I suppose, involved in that. I think that is it. I think in terms of questions, that's all we've got. If anyone does have any last minute ones, fire them my way now. I'll give it a few minutes before I wrap up. But thank you very much for joining us. Like I said before, we are hoping to do this once a month. Make sure you're up to date with everything happening at Sheffield Wednesday. Maybe things might quieten down in a little while. We've had so much to do, so much to cover over the last 6, 7, 8 months. Sheffield Wednesday are a roller coaster of a football club, and they certainly were under the last owner. I, for one, wouldn't mind that roller coaster becoming slightly less windy over the next couple of years. And we'd have a last question. Do you think we should play 2 up top, especially at home? Honestly, I think with Wednesday, I like the idea of 2 up top at the moment, especially when you've got Bailey playing, because I think with Bailey, he's a real workhorse, and he'll bolt around for you, and he'll battle for everything. And yeah, I quite like the idea of a 2 up top, but obviously it all depends on what's behind him as well and how that's going to work. Wednesday are not entirely flush for footballers at the moment, and that doesn't help things. So I wouldn't mind a 2 up top. I think Bailey is proven to be a really important player for Sheffield Wednesday, and I think, like everybody else, I'd just love to see EK get going, because that would be a massive bonus. But yeah, we'll look forward to the game on Saturday. It would be a big one after everything that's happened. If Wednesday can go away to West Brom and get a result, fingers crossed. It's not going to be easy. The rest of the season is not going to be easy, but at least a new dawn has begun for Sheffield Wednesday. And on that note, I'll leave you to it. Thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you next month.